Most people with declining kidney function are told what not to eat. Avoid salt. Watch potassium. Be careful with protein. Stay away from processed food. But after hearing that long list, they are usually left with one very practical question. What am I actually supposed to eat when I become hungry between meals? That question matters more than it sounds, because one careless afternoon snack can contain more sodium, phosphorus, potassium, and processed protein than an entire home-cooked meal. And many of the foods marketed as healthy can be surprisingly difficult for weakened kidneys to handle. Today, I'm going to show you 5 simple snacks that may fit into a kidney-conscious eating plan, including one food you may have been told to avoid completely. The difference is not the food alone. The preparation method changes everything. Stay with me through the 5th snack, because it is a type of nut that is very different from almonds, peanuts, and many of the other nuts commonly restricted on kidney diets. More importantly, I'll explain the mistakes that can turn each of these foods from a reasonable choice into the wrong choice. I'm Robert Hale, and before we begin, I need to make something very clear. These foods do not cure chronic kidney disease. They do not rebuild damaged kidney filters, and they should never replace medication, laboratory testing, or advice from your kidney specialist. Kidney nutrition is highly individual. A food that works well for someone with early-stage kidney disease may be inappropriate for someone receiving dialysis or someone whose potassium is already elevated. What these foods can do is help you construct snacks with less sodium, fewer phosphorus additives, more controlled portions, and ingredients that may be easier to fit into the plan your medical team has created for you. To understand why that matters, you first need to understand what your kidney numbers are actually telling you. Your kidneys continuously filter your blood, remove waste, balance minerals, regulate fluid, and help control several processes that affect your blood pressure, bones, and red blood cells. Creatinine is one of the waste products measured in your blood. It is produced through normal muscle metabolism and removed mainly through the kidneys. When filtration becomes less effective, creatinine may rise, but that number is also affected by factors such as age, muscle mass, hydration, certain medications, and recent dietary intake. That is why a creatinine result should not be interpreted by itself. Doctors usually consider it together with your estimated glomerular filtration rate, commonly called eGFR, and a urine albumin test that looks for protein leaking through the kidney filters. Persistent changes in eGFR, or urine albumin, are among the primary markers used to identify and monitor chronic kidney disease. Here's the part many people misunderstand. You cannot reliably judge kidney function by how you feel. Early kidney disease may produce few noticeable symptoms. At the same time, waking to urinate at night does not automatically mean that your kidneys are failing. Nighttime urination can also be related to diabetes, prostate enlargement, bladder conditions, sleep apnea, medication timing, fluid intake, heart problems, leg swelling, and other causes. That symptom deserves a proper evaluation rather than a conclusion based on a single internet video. But once kidney disease has been diagnosed, food choices become important because damaged kidneys may have more difficulty balancing sodium, potassium, phosphorus, fluid, and the waste created when the body processes protein. The goal is not to search for a magical food that cleans the kidneys. The goal is to stop unknowingly making their job more complicated. And the first snack is one of the easiest places to begin. Before I show it to you, subscribe to Robert Hale Health and turn on notifications. Every video on this channel is designed to explain the health questions that often remain unanswered after a rushed appointment, especially for adults over 60. Now, snack number 1 is fresh red grapes. Grapes are not medicine, but they can be a practical whole fruit choice for many people who have been advised to watch potassium. Red grapes contain water, fiber, vitamin C, and naturally occurring plant compounds that give the skin its dark red or purple color. Organizations that publish kidney-friendly food guidance commonly include grapes among fruit options that may fit lower potassium plans. Egg whites and cauliflower, which we will discuss shortly, also appear frequently in kidney-conscious food guidance. The important words are portion and whole fruit. A reasonable starting portion for many people is approximately half a cup, but your personal allowance should be based on your laboratory results and your dietitian's recommendations. Place the grapes in a small bowl rather than eating directly from a large bag. That one habit prevents a modest serving from becoming 3 or 4 servings without you realizing it. Now, here is the first mistake. Grape juice is not nutritionally identical to whole grapes. Juice makes it easy to consume the sugar from a large quantity of fruit very quickly, while providing much less of the fiber that slows eating and helps with fullness. A small glass can disappear in seconds, and may be especially unhelpful for someone trying to manage blood sugar. The second mistake is assuming that raisins are simply smaller grapes. Raisins are dried, which means their natural sugar and minerals are concentrated into a much smaller volume. A handful of raisins can represent far more grapes than most people would sit down and eat fresh. Dried fruit can therefore be harder to portion and may deliver substantially more potassium and carbohydrate in a few bites. Fresh grapes are generally the more manageable option. The third mistake is pairing the grapes with salty crackers, processed cheese spread, or deli meat, and believing the entire snack is kidney-friendly because fruit is included. The supporting foods matter just as much as the grapes. Depending on your prescribed protein, potassium, and phosphorus limits, you may pair a small serving of grapes with a measured portion of another approved food. But do not automatically add protein simply because social media says every snack requires it. People with chronic kidney disease who are not on dialysis may sometimes be advised to moderate protein, while people receiving dialysis may need more because dialysis can remove protein from the blood. Protein recommendations can change as kidney disease progresses. This leads directly to snack number 2, cooked egg whites. Egg whites can provide high-quality protein while containing much less phosphorus than the yolk. That makes them useful in certain kidney eating plans, particularly when someone needs protein but has also been told to watch phosphorus. The yolk contains valuable nutrients and is not automatically unhealthy, but for a person with specific phosphorus restrictions, separating the white from the yolk can change the mineral content of the snack significantly. The safest preparation is simple. Cook 2 or 3 egg whites thoroughly in a non-stick pan with a small amount of olive oil. Add flavor with black pepper, parsley, chives, paprika, onion powder, or another salt-free seasoning approved for you. Another option is to hard-boil whole eggs and remove the yolks before eating. The first major mistake is adding salt without measuring it. Sodium can encourage fluid retention and contribute to higher blood pressure, both of which may place additional strain on the kidneys and cardiovascular system. Most sodium does not come from the salt shaker alone. It also hides in sauces, seasoning blends, processed meats, cheese products, restaurant food, and packaged snacks. The second mistake is pouring bottled hot sauce, soy sauce, or a salty seasoning mixture over the egg whites. A food that begins with almost no sodium can quickly become a high-sodium snack because of what is added afterward. Read labels rather than trusting the front of the bottle. The third mistake occurs with cartons of liquid egg whites. Some are simple, pasteurized egg whites, while others may include additional ingredients. Compare the sodium per serving and choose the plainest option available. The fourth mistake is assuming that more protein is always better. It is not. Protein is essential for maintaining muscle and strength, especially as we age, but the right quantity depends on your nutritional status, kidney function, weight, activity level, and whether you receive dialysis. Someone who is unintentionally losing weight or muscle needs a different plan from someone consuming very large portions of meat at every meal. This is why the advice to avoid all protein can be dangerous, but the advice to eat as much protein as possible can also be irresponsible. The correct target is personal. Now, the third snack is where the conversation becomes much more interesting, because it involves a food that appears on almost every high potassium warning list: the potato. Potatoes naturally contain a substantial amount of potassium. For a person whose blood potassium is high, eating a large baked potato may be inappropriate. But preparation can reduce some of the potassium, which means the conversation does not always have to end with the words, "never eat potatoes again." The method commonly recommended is boiling or double boiling. Begin by peeling the potato and cutting it into small, thin pieces. The smaller pieces expose more of the potato to the water. Place the pieces in a large pot of water and boil them. Drain that water completely. Add fresh water and continue boiling until the potato is fully cooked. The discarded cooking water contains some of the potassium that moved out of the potato during boiling. The National Kidney Foundation notes that double boiling may help people who need to limit potassium enjoy certain root vegetables. while emphasizing that individual requirements depend on kidney stage and laboratory results. Notice what this technique does not do. It does not remove every milligram of potassium. It does not transform a potato into an unlimited food. And it does not mean that everyone with chronic kidney disease must restrict potatoes. Many people with early stage disease and normal blood potassium may not need the same limits as someone with recurrent hyperkalemia. Your blood test, not a generic food chart, determines how cautious you need to be. After boiling, keep the portion modest. Lightly mash the potato with a little olive oil, lemon juice, roasted garlic, or fresh herbs. Avoid adding large amounts of salt, processed gravy, packaged cheese sauce, or several tablespoons of butter. Those additions can completely change the nutritional profile. Here are the two mistakes that matter most. The first is microwaving, or baking the potato, and assuming that it has been treated to reduce potassium. Baking and microwaving cook the potato, but they do not remove minerals through discarded water. When potassium reduction is the goal, the water and draining steps are essential. The second mistake is believing that sweet potatoes are automatically safer because they are promoted as a health food. A food can be nutritious for the general population and still be difficult to fit into a particular kidney diet. Sweet potatoes also contain potassium. The same principle applies to avocado, tomato products, bananas, certain beans, and many salt substitutes. Healthy does not mean appropriate in every quantity for every medical condition. Kidney nutrition depends on your current blood levels, not on a popularity list. This is also why you should be cautious with salt substitutes. Many replace sodium chloride with potassium chloride. That may be helpful for some people with high blood pressure, but it can be unsafe for someone whose kidneys are struggling to remove potassium. Never assume a product labeled low sodium is automatically kidney friendly. Turn the package around and check the ingredients. At this point, you have seen a fruit, a targeted protein option, and a food that can sometimes be modified through preparation. Before we move to the final two snacks, tap the like button and tell me in the comments which of the first three surprised you most: grapes, egg whites, or the double-boiled potato. That response tells me which kidney food topic needs a deeper video next. Snack number 4 is cauliflower, and its value comes from something extremely practical. It can replace foods that are harder to fit into certain kidney plans without leaving you with a plate that feels empty. Plain cauliflower is naturally low in sodium and is often listed among lower potassium vegetable choices. It also provides fiber, vitamin C, folate, and a satisfying amount of volume for relatively few calories. But the greatest advantage may be versatility. You can roast it, mash it, steam it, or break it into rice-sized pieces. This matters because long-term eating plans fail when every meal feels like a punishment. A kidney-conscious diet still needs warmth, texture, flavor, and enough food to leave you satisfied. One simple option is cauliflower rice. Break plain cauliflower into florets, wash it, dry it, and pulse it briefly in a food processor until the pieces resemble rice. Cook it in a covered pan for a few minutes with a small amount of olive oil. Add lemon juice, parsley, pepper, garlic powder, or smoked paprika. Another option is roasted cauliflower. Place the florets on a baking sheet, add a light coating of olive oil and salt-free seasoning, and roast until the edges become golden. A third option is mashed cauliflower. Steam or boil it until soft. Drain it thoroughly, and blend it with roasted garlic and a small amount of olive oil. The result is not identical to mashed potatoes, and pretending that it is will only disappoint people. But it can be an enjoyable side dish in its own right. The biggest cauliflower mistake happens in the frozen food aisle. Plain frozen cauliflower can be convenient and useful. Frozen cauliflower covered in cheese sauce is a completely different product. Processed sauces may contain high amounts of sodium, saturated fat, and phosphorus-containing additives. Phosphorus additives are particularly important because they can be absorbed more readily than much of the phosphorus naturally present in food. Look for ingredient words containing phos, such as phosphate or phosphoric. NIDDK guidance encourages people with chronic kidney disease to read ingredient lists for phosphorus additives and to work with a health professional to determine the right intake of phosphorus, potassium, sodium, protein, and fluid. Another mistake is assuming that every vegetable must be eaten raw. Cooking can make vegetables easier to chew and digest, which is important for many older adults. The best preparation is the one that remains within your dietary limits. and that you will realistically continue eating. An untouched bag of raw vegetables in the refrigerator provides no benefit. Now we arrive at snack number 5, unsalted macadamia nuts. Nuts often create confusion in kidney nutrition because they are grouped together as though every variety contains the same amounts of potassium, phosphorus, sodium, protein, and carbohydrate. They do not. Almonds, peanuts, cashews, walnuts, and macadamias have different nutritional profiles. Macadamia nuts may fit some kidney-conscious plans in a small, carefully measured portion, but they are not automatically safe for every person with kidney disease. The serving is the key. Place a small number in a bowl or container before you begin eating. Do not sit with the entire bag in your lap. Macadamia nuts are calorie-dense, and several servings can be consumed quickly. Choose raw or dry roasted nuts with no added salt. Avoid honey-roasted, chocolate-covered, caramel-coated, barbecue-flavored, or heavily seasoned versions. The plain nut and the flavored snack product should not be treated as the same food. Macadamias are rich in monounsaturated fat, the same broad type of fat found in olive oil. Replacing some foods high in saturated fat with foods containing unsaturated fat can support cardiovascular health. That connection matters because heart and kidney health are closely linked. High blood pressure, diabetes, and blood vessel damage can affect both systems. But once again, the benefit does not come from eating unlimited nuts. It comes from using a controlled portion as a replacement for a less suitable snack, such as salted chips, processed crackers, or a sugary pastry. There are 3 cautions here. First, people with strict potassium or phosphorus limits still need to confirm that macadamias fit their individual plan. A food being lower in a mineral than another nut does not mean it contains none. Second, people with swallowing or dental difficulties may need a softer option. Third, macadamia nuts are toxic to dogs. Store them where pets cannot reach them, and never intentionally give them to an animal. Now, let's bring the 5 foods together, because the real value is not hidden inside any one ingredient. The real value is in the decisions these foods teach you to make. With grapes, the decision is whole fruit instead of juice or dried fruit, and a controlled portion instead of eating from the bag. With egg whites, the decision is obtaining protein with less phosphorus than a whole egg, while keeping the amount appropriate for your personal needs. With potatoes, the decision is using a water-based preparation method when potassium reduction has been recommended. With cauliflower, the decision is choosing a plain vegetable and adding your own flavor rather than buying a sauce-covered processed version. With macadamia nuts, the decision is measuring a small, unsalted portion rather than treating a calorie-dense food as unlimited. These are not dramatic changes. That is exactly why they can work. A plan that demands perfection for 7 days usually collapses by the 2nd week. A plan built around repeatable decisions has a better chance of becoming part of your life. Consider a fictional example based on the pattern many families experience. A 68-year-old man named Richard learns that his eGFR has been gradually declining. He also has diabetes and high blood pressure. His first reaction is fear. His second reaction is to search the internet, where one video tells him to eat more protein, another tells him to eliminate it. One article recommends bananas, and another warns him never to touch them. Within a few days, he is more confused than when he began. Richard's biggest dietary problem is not dinner. His wife already cooks most evening meals at home. The problem is the food he eats between lunch and dinner. Every afternoon, he finishes a large bag of salted crackers while watching television. Sometimes he adds processed cheese. On other days, he eats packaged meat snacks because the label says high protein. He never thinks of these foods as meals, so he never mentions them when his doctor asks what he eats. That invisible afternoon routine is delivering a significant amount of sodium and processed ingredients several times a week. Richard does not try to rebuild his entire diet overnight. He brings his laboratory results and a list of his usual foods to a renal dietitian. Together, they decide which minerals he actually needs to limit. He begins by replacing the crackers on several afternoons with a measured portion of fresh grapes. On another day, he prepares egg whites with herbs. His wife buys plain cauliflower instead of a frozen version in cheese sauce. When potatoes are included, they follow the preparation method recommended for his potassium target. His medications remain unchanged unless his doctor adjusts them. He continues monitoring his blood pressure and blood sugar. Months later, Richard does not claim that grapes healed his kidneys or that cauliflower reversed his disease. What has changed is that his eating pattern now supports the medical plan rather than quietly working against it. He understands his laboratory results better, consumes less sodium, and no longer feels completely helpless. That is the realistic goal of kidney nutrition, not a miracle, but better decisions repeated often enough to matter. There is another lesson in Richard's story. The most important kidney-friendly food may be the one that replaces your worst repeated habit. Eating cauliflower once will not cancel a week of salty processed meals. Adding grapes after dinner will not protect you from uncontrolled blood pressure or blood sugar. Egg whites will not compensate for skipped medication. A double-boiled potato will not correct high potassium caused by an inappropriate supplement or a medication interaction. Foods work as part of a larger treatment plan. Blood pressure control, diabetes management, appropriate medication, physical activity when medically safe, smoking cessation, laboratory monitoring, and regular medical care remain central. So, what can you do after this video without becoming overwhelmed? Start with your numbers. Find your most recent eGFR, urine albumin to creatinine ratio, potassium, phosphorus, and blood pressure. Do not panic over one isolated result. Look at the trend and discuss it with your medical team. Next, identify the snack you eat most frequently. Do not list the snack you eat on your best day. Write down what you actually reach for when you are tired, hungry, bored, or in a hurry. Check its serving size, sodium, potassium when listed, and ingredient list. Look specifically for added phosphates and potassium chloride. Then choose one replacement that fits your prescribed plan. That might be a measured portion of fresh grapes, cooked egg whites, plain cauliflower, a carefully prepared potato portion, or a small amount of unsalted macadamia nuts. It might also be a different food selected by your renal dietitian. The purpose of this list is not to force 5 foods onto every kidney patient. It is to show you how preparation, portion size, and laboratory results change the answer. Build a short grocery list instead of buying a cart full of unfamiliar health foods. Fresh grapes, eggs or plain liquid egg whites, 1 or 2 potatoes, fresh or plain frozen cauliflower, a small bag of unsalted macadamia nuts. Before purchasing anything packaged, compare labels. A product with a health claim on the front can still contain a surprising amount of sodium or added phosphorus. Prepare one food before you become hungry. Wash and portion the grapes. Cook several egg whites. Cut the cauliflower. Measure the nuts into small containers. Kidney-conscious eating becomes much easier when the better option is already visible and ready. And remember that fluid advice is also individualized. Some people with chronic kidney disease are not placed on a strict fluid restriction, while others, particularly certain people with advanced disease, heart failure, swelling, or dialysis treatment may need careful limits. Do not force excessive water because someone online told you it will flush the kidneys. More water is not automatically better, and damaged kidneys cannot be washed clean like a household filter. Follow the fluid target given by your clinician. The same warning applies to supplements, detox teas, electrolyte powders, herbal remedies, and salt substitutes. Natural does not mean harmless. Some products contain large amounts of potassium, sodium, or ingredients that interact with medication. Others may be contaminated or may directly injure the kidneys. Tell your doctor and pharmacist about every supplement you use, including products purchased without a prescription. There are also situations where changing snacks is not the appropriate next step. Seek prompt medical advice when you develop rapidly worsening, swelling, significant shortness of breath, repeated vomiting, confusion, very little urine, severe weakness, an irregular heartbeat sensation, or sudden worsening of your condition. These symptoms should not be managed by experimenting with food at home. And anyone with stage 4 or stage 5 kidney disease, dialysis treatment, recurrent high potassium, severe weight loss, or multiple dietary restrictions should create a plan with a nephrologist and registered renal dietitian. The amount of potassium, phosphorus, protein, sodium, and fluid that is appropriate for one patient can be completely wrong for another. That is why responsible kidney advice should always return you to your own laboratory results. So, let's finish with the 5 snack rules worth remembering. Choose fresh grapes over juice or dried fruit, and measure the portion. Use egg whites as a lower phosphorus protein option only within your personal protein target. When your medical team has told you to limit potassium, boiling and draining potatoes may reduce some of it, but the technique does not make portions unlimited. Choose plain cauliflower and season it yourself rather than purchasing a version buried in processed sauce. Treat unsalted macadamia nuts as a small, measured food, not as a free snack, and confirm that they fit your mineral limits. Most importantly, stop looking for one food that will lower a laboratory number overnight. Kidney disease is not managed through a single ingredient. It is managed through patterns. The food you select repeatedly, the portion you serve without thinking, the seasoning you use every day, the packaged products you stop bringing into the house, the medication you take consistently, the blood pressure and blood sugar you work to control, the appointments you keep even when you feel fine. Your kidneys have performed an enormous amount of work for you throughout your life. Protecting the function you still have does not require a perfect diet by tomorrow morning. It requires one informed decision, followed by another. Share this video with one person over 60 who has been told to watch their kidneys, but was never clearly shown what that means at snack time. And before you leave, choose only one change from today's video and put it into practice this week. Not 5 changes. 1. Because the smallest action you genuinely repeat is more valuable than the perfect plan you never begin. Take good care of yourself and take good care of your kidneys.